Hello and welcome to the Gleam Fishing Channel. You'll see that I'm not on the Gleam still, but the Gleam will be available for the next podcast. So you might remember that recently we played a video of my grandfather, Jack Guard, in the boat shed. We found some 30-year-old footage, which was pretty cool, and I really enjoyed looking through that. So this is actually part 2. So yeah, I hope you enjoy and thanks for watching. So as with the other video, there's the volume's up and down, it's poor quality. This was taken in the mid-90s, so about 30 years ago. So I don't know what we're going to see here, but we're going to have a crack and I'll talk you through it and I hope you enjoy. So let's kick it off. Jack Guard, Grandad. 237 Haven Road, going in the shed.
I'll certainly have to have you people down here when we take the boats out. You've got first priority, I can promise you that. Okay, thanks.
We'll come and do a film for you.
Once you take the photograph of you two, you're going to be on the front page of the New Zealand News or something.
Never been.
Darren in a film.
Never been.
What's this? What are they doing? They're doing something over here.
Boat building.
Oh, this will be the best kind of
Pretty noisy around Haven Road. And I think it looks like he's just saying goodbye to the interviewers or to somebody. He's just seeing some guests off. Obviously, they've come and had a bit of a look through the boat shed, and good to see Grandad smiling. He's obviously he's either glad to see them go or glad that they came, but you never really know. So let's continue and see what else we discover on this video.
top guy. Top guy at building boats in Nelson. He hasn't got any care whatsoever. Okay.
I'm actually not sure who that is, so if any of my viewers know who that is, then please let us know, because as I said, it's 30 years ago and we actually don't know the source of this video. Oh, we're down the wharf now. So the old Polaris Jack. So there's a blast from the past. That's where the guard boats are. You see the Dorothy May, and I can see the Da Vinci and probably the Nimbus and Gleam there in the background. The old Polaris Jack there, owned by Gary Manson. Did a little bit of trawling and snapper longlining out here in Tasman Bay. So this will be early to mid 90s as well. Looking at just the boats in the background. I'd say those people that probably interviewed Grandad just came out and headed down the port to probably just get some shots. So maybe this video is just all about Port Nelson. But we'll have a look and see. He did quite a bit of longlining, Gary Manson, out in the bay here for snapper, and it's really interesting because we have a closed trawl line out here off the Mochwaka Bluffs, and he could longline inside the line and we could only trawl outside the line. But it was one of those funny things where when he was catching the snapper on the inside of the line, when it's longlining, we weren't getting anything outside the line trawling, and vice versa. So when we were catching them trawling, he wasn't getting them lining. So there's some of the guard fleet. So the Da Vinci in the background, that's the Nimbus there in the foreground. Obviously it was scalloping because you see they had the dredges on. Oh, John Gray, it looks like we're back in the boat shed, people. Good to see some safety glasses, I've got to say, looking through all of this old footage. It's the first time I've seen any PPE, so things are improving. So that's actually, looks like what he's doing. So that's a solid steel shaft. So what he's doing there on the old lathe is he's actually making a coupling, a shaft coupling. So we made all of our own coupling. So that'll be, looking at that, I recognise that will be a shaft coupling on the Kathleen G. So effectively joining the gearbox to the propeller via the stainless steel shaft. So, quite a bit of work in that and quite a bit of time, as with all of these vessels. which is a big old lathe, a very, very old lathe that we used to use to spin up all our couplings and a lot of other bits and pieces for the boats. And if I remember rightly, I'll see if I can get a shot of it, but it was driven by, I want to say, a Dodge gearbox out of a car. So it was driven by a flat belt, and I'm pretty sure there's a Dodge gearbox mounted up on the wall with a flat belt driving that old lathe. That lathe, that was in it for as long as I can remember. She'd have to be 100 years old probably at this point, or 70, 80, I don't know, but it was very... So if you see there on the left-hand side, see that little orange piece of timber? So under there is a Dodge gearbox, literally had the gear lever on it, and you would change gear on the gearbox and change the location of the flat belt that went round the shaft. So, you know, and it worked a treat, and it worked like that for decades in Guard Sea Services. So, you know, nothing modern, but hey, it was very, very functionable. Quite a slow cut on the old coupling, as you'd want it to be. So that's John, again, John Gray, RIP. As you see, Grandad was hands-on with every part of his vessels. Checking in, making sure the boys are doing as required. Some of the other vessels that be working on, there'll be, as I said previously, a lot of vessels lying around of all sorts of sizes getting repairs. Looks like there's some new planks going in here and probably some new ribs looking at it. Oh yeah, putting some new planks on, clamped at the top to hold them in. Paul Glover. I remember that part of the shed very well. It was very, very dark, very noisy. But yeah, this takes me back to when I was a kid, really. Off to the right, just over his shoulder, there was actually the steamer, the steam box that you'd steam all the planks to shape them to get them on board, to get them around the hull. Watch your hands here, Glover. Oh, where's those safety glasses, Paul? This is pre the Health and Safety at Work Act 2015, people. That's actually the Polaris 2, so you can see all that noise. That's the planer. Man, I remember that. That cuts right through you, that noise. Hated that sound. Still do, I'm twitching. I obviously hadn't been in the shed for a while, so look at all that timber under the Polaris 2. That was my job, folks, for many, many, many years, was to stack that stuff up. And you'd come in like every weekend and the boys had been just throwing scraps and pieces under there and offcuts. Then I had to come in and stack them and straighten nails, so getting a bit of a chill. I don't know if it's a positive one, but I've talked in some of the other podcasts about stacking timber. Well, there you go. You see what I was up against. I was only a young fella, but you know, my father and Chris and John would be drinking cuppers and working on engines and nets and things, and there I was stacking all of that stuff and sweeping sawdust. So that was, but hey, I look back now fondly because it was an awesome way to grow up. In the back of the Polaris, no shaft hole in the timber yet, but so as Grandad said previously, remember we throw them on a truck those big vessels and get them down and launch them at the at Port Nelson. It's a job in itself. Well, another very familiar sound. Big old hand planer. They'll be planing off a plank. Some of the construction, that's probably the Kathleen G. 3 stringers. You'll see they've got the horizontal stringers and then all the vertical ribs to hold it together. That's side shot of the Polaris. So it's pretty dark in there. We did have lights, but she was pretty dark. To be fair, there was as much timber, native timber up on the roof. As you can see, that's the shed. She's pretty old, remember, built in the late 50s, early 60s. So I know when they removed it, when they demolished it, I think it went out to Norwest Timbers. So because a lot of beautiful native timber. And a fun fact, I guess, in a weird thing is, like, that shed was pulled down, and I needed some iron because I've got an old shack down just north of Kaikoura, and we were doing some building on that, and I actually went into Norwest Timber. Now, I didn't realise that Norwest Timbers here in Nelson had actually done the demolition, and I went in there and bought some iron and some ridge cap, and without a word of a lie, we were down there. It was me and my father and Doug Vork were doing an extension on the old shack down there, and we were putting some iron on the roof. And we were putting the ridge cap on down the middle of, to obviously keep the water out. And without a word of a lie, and it was just the weirdest thing, we turned this second-hand ridge cap over, and written on it had Guard Sea Services. And it wasn't planned. It was obviously meant to be. It was just really, really bizarre. So, several years later, I ended up buying, a bit of roofing iron that's now part of our family shack. With Guard Sea Services on it. So, it was obviously meant to be, and again, one of those things you look at and go, bloody hell, that's awesome. They seem very interested in that roof. We'll flicker along a little bit and just see what comes up, eh? Oh, yep, there's still on the Polaris. Some age-appropriate music in the background. That was always playing in the boat shed. Reliving the 90s here, people. Hopping down into that'll be the Kathleen G. That'll be the engine room, but obviously before the engine's in there. So going down to do a bit of planning and having a look around, and probably a bit of measuring. So you'll see all the timber down there. They're pretty solid. A lot of timber down there. They're pretty strong, these vessels. You can see the intricacy, like the workmanship, craftsmanship, the lost craftsmanship. They don't make boats like this anymore, people, because largely you can't get the native timber, and we don't have the skills to do it. So no, that's on the Polaris. So I don't seem to see much of Jack in this. John banging some nails in. We'll just jump along again, see what else we find. This is all new to us, viewers. Oh, Grandad. Checking out that coupling again. Polaris in the beautiful pink paint. Stem of the Polaris. Like I said, there's that one-piece keel, 70 foot long, hardwood timber. And I guess a fun fact, well, maybe an interesting fact. So that keel, which is the bottom of the vessel, the middle of the vessel, for those that don't know, it's basically, what would you call it, the foot or the spine of the vessel. That's one piece of timber. And if you look on this shot here on the left-hand side, see that huge bench? That's a big workbench. So that keel, that solid piece of timber, was holding that bench up on the left-hand side for, for decades. And when I was a very, very young kid, I remember Granddad saying, one day, boy, that will be my largest and finest boat, that keel. And then, next minute, many years later, that keel was slid out from under the bench to the middle of the shed, and that became the Polaris. So that one bit of timber in the keel was there for a long, long, long time. So quite a special bit of wood. And obviously she's no longer a bench, she's now the Polaris 2. Clearly I had to do a bit of cleaning up. So only scallop and oyster fishermen will know what's happening here. So what they're actually doing is they're making what we call a scratcher. So that is when you're standing at the scallop or oyster tray to pull the shell towards you from the back of the tray so you could sort it and size it. So that's what's happening there. It's quite interesting to see that. We used a lot of them, and we'd make some new ones every season because they would wear out basically with all the shell. So one of those would actually, scrape many, many tons of scallops and oysters and shell and debris. So that's what's happening there. That's for a vessel, but it's certainly not part of a vessel's hull. But really interesting to see them making one. Now this gentleman, you'll probably see his face shortly, and so this is one of our relatives. Now he hasn't seen this footage either. Certainly haven't asked his permission to play it, so I'm sorry, Arthur. So this is Arthur King Turner. So Arthur King Turner, so the King Turners and Turners are relatives of the Guards, but we brought Arthur in, Granddad brought Arthur in because he was a fantastic engineer and a really, really good welder. And of course, we were boat builders and really good with timber, but we didn't do a lot of engineering. We did have Brian Gregg, or Fizzer we called him. He was our main engineer. He was really good. But at this stage, we were building 2 or 3 boats. So they brought in Arthur. He did a lot of the welding on the likes of the Able Tasman Explorer that's over in the Able Tasman Park. I think she's gone up north now. And Arthur made the fuel tanks, did all the aluminium fuel tanks for the Kathleen G. He made the gantry for the Kathleen G. So Arthur worked in there with Granddad for a few years doing a lot of the engineering when we needed the extra help. So if you're watching Arthur, I hope you enjoy, and I hope things were all good with you and the family over in Australia. Cleaning out the tip by the looks of it. On the old MIG. The old bandsaw. There's Arthur. Glad to see a welding helmet. We didn't see a lot of safety gear or PP in those days, so obviously didn't want to get a dose of arc eye. I actually think that's a bracket for one of the aluminium fuel tanks in the Kathleen G. That's what it looks like to me. Back into those couplings, you can see they took a while. Kathleen G couplings to join the main engine gearbox to the propeller shaft. Obviously they've got to be strong. I think she was about 420 horsepower, real horsepower, not pony power. And so you had to have a really good drive chain. We'll jump forward a bit and just see what else we see, eh? Oh, there's Steve. Yep, or we'll call him Stevie Wonder. Steve Smith. So he was another one of Grandad's workers. You'll see he's on the Kathleen G. Got the tape measure out, trying to figure things out. It's one of those walking the planks we talked about, walking the plank on the side of the boats. You had to be pay attention and know what you were doing. Not a lot of edge protection. If you fell, largely you weren't paying attention, and there wasn't a lot of sympathy, to be honest, in those days. But no one did. Oh, here down Nelson Port now. What have we got? So we've got the Dorothy May coming in. So that would have been owned by Guards Fisheries Nelson at the time. Probably being driven. I'll just see what she's doing. So this is mid-90s. Snow on the hills, so it could be oysters or scallops. Probably being skippered by James Carson. So he worked for Guards Fisheries Nelson for many years, 20-30 years. Really good skipper. Him and obviously Mike Trounson, one of our own other skippers, worked for us for about 30 years. He now owns the Dorothy May. So Dorothy May is still, built by Jack Guard in the 50s, but still operating out of Port Nelson. Hello, she's got scallops on her. If you look up the bow, see those white bumps? They are bolt bags full of scallops. So this would have been in the 90s scallop season out in Tasman Bay. And it looks like she's got her 6 bags, which was probably around about 2.8 or 3 tonne of green scallops. That was our quota per day. Quite often we'd have that by lunchtime. Up to 70 vessels. We're back when we were enhancing the fishery. Unfortunately, before silt seemed to wipe them and the oysters out in the early 2000s. Yeah, she's down a bit in the nose, the old Dorothy May. You'll see on the stern she's got the tray she'll have the scallop dredges on. Little bit of a breeze, so he'll be heading to, pretty sure he'll be heading to Tallies to unload. So we might get to see a little bit of that. Not very good footage, but again, this is 30 years old, and great lines though, the old Dorothy May. She's a well photographed and well painted vessel. She's definitely got great lines, and she's not a GM. She's an 8L3B Gardner. Well, there you go, off to Tallies Nelson. So this was pretty much the out there, throw the dredges in at daylight, get your quota, head into Tallies in Nelson if you're fishing in Tasman Bay, or head into Terracoe Wharf in Golden Bay if you're fishing in Golden Bay. So once you had your quota, then you get in and unload, and then it was just rinse and repeat. We'd do that every day, 5 days a week for 10, 12, 15 weeks of the year. And that was largely, that was our money time of the year. So the scalloping was really, really important. And such a shame to have the scallops wiped out by the silt in about 2001 in Tasman and Golden Bay, and the oysters. It did have a profound negative impact on the inshore fishing vessels. We've gone from 80 inshore vessels to probably about 8, to be perfectly honest. So, yeah, so James will be on her there. She is going next to the wharf, getting ready to unload. Forward. Oh yeah, there you go. So there's a fadge or a bulk bag. That's about 350 to 400 kilos of green scallops coming off there. So he'll probably have about 6 of those if he's had his daily quota. Lots of hive of activity, as you see the old scallop season. There's most of them. See they're up on the wharf there. Oh, Coast Guard going past, but you'll see there's quite a few scallops up on the wharf and quite a hive of activity. quite important to the Nelson economy, the scallops were. Oh, she's unloaded. Everyone will be keen to get home and have a feed and chill out and get ready to do it again in the morning. Remember, we had about 70 vessels doing this back in the day, from the sort of late 80s through to about 2000. You'll see it's early footage. If you actually see behind the Dorothy May here, you'll see like currently there's actually plant and food or crop and food. The big research facility is there, which we used to call sort of Donker's Wharf, and that's actually not there. If you have a look at that today, you'll see considerable buildings and development behind where the Dorothy May is. But so this is definitely about like early or mid 90s. One of Tally's factory trawlers in the back. Looks like might have been the Adelaide Pearl behind her and the old Waipuri. So they're vessels from the past. And here the boys tying up. Can't really see who the crew is, but it could be Dick Ashby. I'm not sure. Grab the ropes, put them on, put the spring on, kick her head so the stern comes in, bang the stern line on, and you are good to go. Not a bad attempt at getting her in there, James. Well done. Probably done that a few thousand times, to be perfectly honest. There's the empty bulk bags ready for tomorrow. Bag set up in the frame there. Yeah, she's ready to go tomorrow by the looks of it. Up the mast. The old tuna poles, hadn't taken the tuna poles off in that photo, so the albacore tuna poles, she had the ladders that you'd put out the side of the vessel and run your tuna lines off for catching your albacore. Nelson Haven, beautiful looking day, the old lighthouse. Beautiful day in Nelson Haven. So yeah, I'm not sure what else is on this, but we'll just flick forward a little bit and just see what we find, eh?
Oh, don't bump me.
Oh, someone talking. Oh, here we go. Oh, the old Canary. So she was scalloping at the time for a while, or Tiruruku, I think they renamed it. I probably pronounced that completely wrong. But she was an old tug converted into a trawler. The tradition, she was actually Saunders built. This looks like it's behind Marine in General, where the vessel's tied up when there was a lot of vessels here in Nelson. That's Coolwell Slipway in the background, so this is quite an old, definitely in the 90s. That was largely where the vessels parked up if they were doing a bit of work, or the overflow berthage. Not sure if that's one of the old Solanders, the old steel boat next to the wharf, maybe, possibly. No, the old, she used to run, I think, harbour cruises. This is just down Port Nelson or down Vickerman Street. Oh, yeah, Destiny G again, as I said, my first drive. Definitely got the scallop gear on the back. Beautiful little vessel. Wouldn't fit in the bloody thing now, but great little vessel. Out in the bay, that sort of looks like they might have moved to the Boulder Bank or something like that, just to get some B-roll or some footage for the video. What do we got here? This looks like one of the old Russian or Ukrainian vessels that I think were fishing for Sealord at the time. Oh, yeah, it certainly is, yep. Putting the fenders down, getting ready to come alongside by the looks of it. definitely an older design. They caught a lot of fish though. They would have been targeting barracuda and probably jack mackerel back in those days. Oh, what have we got here? Oh, someone in a small recreational craft. I don't recognise them. It's okay. Looks like just general footage around Nelson Haven. Oh, the old canary or Tiruruku. Yep, you can see she's got the classic lines of a tug, like as she was a tug vessel converted to a trawler / scalloping. Oh, so she's still called the Canary then, looking at that. And that might be the old Boston Sea Fire at the wharf at Sealord, so that's quite an old scene there, definitely early 90s I would have thought. Sealord in the background. It's been quite a lot of development change around Port Nelson, without a doubt. It's, she's a different port now. Yep, clearly not a fishing vessel. Yeah, we're coming to the end of this one now. So again, I haven't seen a lot of this footage, but it seems to be all taken around that same early to mid 90s period. And yeah, so that looks like that's it. So came to an ending. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, we're very, very lucky to find that old footage, and hopefully some of you enjoyed it. Some of you may not, but I certainly did. And we will return to some of our normal podcasts. We've got quite a good lineup of guests coming shortly, and we'll have the Gleam back in the water. So hopefully you enjoyed it. Look, please subscribe, leave us a comment. We enjoy reading your comments. Hit the like button, and we'll see you again on the next one. Thank you and enjoy.